The actual aliens did not have much screen time in the original movie. They were mostly in spaceships and the destroyers in the battles, and their ground forces were few. However, the aliens in this movie had air dominance and the spider-like machines on the ground, which were better fitting to the name of harvesters, a race that drove other species to extinction. Zheng unleashed his attacks the instant the spaceship landed. He worried the space outside was a vacuum, but since Qian had left the spaceship already, the environment should be suitable for survival. Indeed, he stepped into an environment with air, although this air smelled absolutely foul. It was still breathable and could keep them alive. The spaceship stopped on top of a spacious platform lined with numerous spider machines on the sides. The aliens inside the machines obviously didn't react to Zheng's appearance for a second, allowing him to dash in front of a machine with Saru before the rest of them raised their guns. Zheng sliced through the 5-meter-tall spider machine with his crimson sword. The machine collapsed into metal pieces and the pieces exploded in the next second. The fire from the explosion spread out to a 10-meter area, then gradually died down. A 1-meter deep and 3-meter wide hole was left in the center of the explosion. It seems like every machine carries a large energy reserve and will explode when you destroy them. That's what enabled even regular machines to possess energy barriers. That attack took 40% of my power to break through the barrier. Destroying 100 of them would expend over half my refined chi. Zheng had been attempting to master control over Tiger's Soul through magic since the last battle at the Cultivator's Inheritance site. It could grant Tiger's Soul an absurd level of power, but with great power came increased burden. Zheng could at most swing the sword 5 times in his dragon transformation before his whole arm would fall apart and his magic would backfire within. So, he still used refined chi in normal situations. He was able to use refined chi much like how he used chi and blood energy despite the lack of cultivation techniques to utilize it. The spider machines were harder than Zheng imagined. Tiger's Soul was extremely sharp when powered by refined chi, but it still took Zheng 40% of his strength to destroy one. Any other normal object would have been pulverized upon contact with the sword. 40% strength might not sound like a lot, but hundreds of attacks at this level would empty his refined chi. Zheng had to give up his plan of causing a big ruckus. He destroyed several machines, then lifted a red one, which was the biggest spider machine on the platform. He activated destruction and threw the machine into the crowd. There were so many of them on the platform and they were standing too close together. The throw knocked away dozens of machines. Zheng took this opportunity to dash off the platform. At the same time, a sandstorm swept out from the spaceship. The energy attacks penetrated the sandstorm and hit the steel walls, causing many explosions. The sandstorm quickly swirled away and disappeared through a turn in the passageway. Imhotep's most useful in sci-fi movies like this. His existence is nearly undying. Only energy attacks that counter him can damage him. With Imhotep on the defense and hung on a fence, they are strong enough. This leaves with Team Pacific. I am waiting. Zheng saw numerous transparent tube passageways after he leaped off the platform. Inside the tubes were small vessels 2 to 3 meters in length floating half a meter above the floor. These vessels were probably the normal transportation tools of the aliens. Rays of energy shots chased after Zheng as the spider machines clustered the rim of the platform. Only those standing on the outer layer could fire. These machines weren't able to fly. Zheng blocked several shots while he dashed on top of a tube. The crimson sword sliced through it and he dropped inside in the next second. Qian has the laptop, but you can't even tell if he's dead or alive after he disappeared. The dude's obnoxious. Whatever, I will walk around and find a place for the battle against Team Pacific. Maybe see if I can find the rest of Team Pacific left in the mothership. Zheng decided on a direction and charged ahead. He swung the sword on his way, causing a series of explosions and driving the area into chaos. At the top layer of the atmosphere in the Earth, another spaceship was flying toward the alien mothership. This spaceship belonged to Team Pacific. They defeated and abducted Team China's second group, then drove the spaceship after Team China's spaceship. It's strange. I keep feeling that I missed a detail. What is it? Julian sat on the floor with his eyes closed. He was tapping his forehead with his finger. There was no evidence, but a feeling of unease lingered inside him. It felt as though he overlooked something, but when he recalled his memories, everything seemed as they should have been. There was nothing he didn't know. The biggest variable would be the strength of Team China's leader. If they are trying to delay until their leader comes to rescue them, I can only label them as stupid and don't live up to my expectation of them. God's realm contains a near infinite number of abilities. No one ability is the most powerful. Each ability has its use and damage. Their safety will hinder Zheng Zha's strength and he won't be able to exert his full power. Even if he does, can he defeat the three of us? He's not the same person that's in Team Devil. The win rate is 70% our win rate. Julian turned his head toward Lionheart. His special senses allowed him to see without his eyes. This man was smiling as he looked at Team China's members. He appeared gentle, but that was only his attitude toward the weak. The gentleness was his pride and contempt toward the weak. Julian shook his head. His lips curled in a seemingly smile, then it faded away. He fell back into his thoughts. I have to admit, this guy is an idiot. He calls himself Royal Blood and should have the chance to be the main character of a story with a name like that. Still, his strength is decent. The undying attribute lets him live even when he encounters people stronger than him. With the addition of my Psyche Force abilities and the Avalon he has, we might not lose against that man in Team Devil. Time slowly passed while Julian was deep in his thoughts. The spaceship approached the alien mothership and entered a gap just like Team China's spaceship did. It soon landed on a platform. What's the situation outside? Lionheart turned to ask Julian. Julian's psyche force extended outward and printed the environment in his mind. He smiled. Surrounded by spider machines. Looks like our conjecture is correct. The aliens will attack us once the time is up. Fortunately, we found a spaceship to leave the mothership. What are we going to do now, leader? His lips twitched when he called Lionheart leader. Lionheart ran his fingers through his hair, then glanced over at Aang Sunamun. Your psyche force abilities are effective against the aliens. Hypnotize them. We are not bothering wasting energy on minions. Then we will find Team China's leader and kill him. Haha. Julian's mouth moved as though he was uttering, how could it be so simple? His eyes opened a slim gap for just an instant. Everyone in this area felt that they saw numerous Buddhas and Dharmachakra appeared. The images lasted for only an instant and the area returned normal. Done. 20% power of the treasures of heavens. What about these people? Julian breathed out, then asked. Lionheart glanced at Aang Sunamun again, who glared at him with expressionless face. He shook his head and said. Hypnotize them. Team China doesn't have a psyche force user, so just hypnotize them. We will take care of them after we kill their leader. And do we still have 2 slots to take in people from other teams? We do. Julian nodded. He turned to look at Honglu and thought for a second. Leave that question for later and finish this movie first. We don't have to fight Team China's leader as soon as we find him. We can choose a spot beneficial to us. I can also control the aliens to aid us. Let's go. Lionheart glanced over at Aang Sunamun again before turning around and walking out the spaceship in a laughter. The hundreds of spider machines outside had collapsed and the aliens inside them knocked out, all due to Julian's ability. A few moments later, Julian and the Caucasian also came out from the spaceship. Julian nodded. They are all hypnotized aside from the person controlling the bombs. Not that it's meaningful to hypnotize them anyway. We are in the alien mothership and the spaceship has been set to my psyche force's frequency. There's no way for them to return to the Earth. Once we kill Zhenjia, they won't be able to run or hide without a psyche force user leader. If you want women, you can create them at any time. Why must you insist on that one? We only have 2 slots left. Lionheart blushed then said in a fury. Fuck. You wanted this guy with the sheath that does nothing but protect you from attacks. I only want a slot and you are complaining. It's decided. Who's the leader here? Julian clenched his teeth then said with a smile. Fine. We do as you said. It's just a slot. It's fine, you are the leader. Leader? A leader who doesn't listen. Is it time to change to another one? Julian shrugged. He extended his psyche force outward. It split into countless thin strings in this huge mothership and spread like tentacles. In under a minute, he detected movement from very far away. There were explosions, and numerous spider machines swarming at the same direction. Julian's lips twitched then he said. Zhenjia is over there. Be prepared for the fight, leader. He took the lead and ran toward the direction of explosions. The aliens near the spaceship gradually awakened after Team Pacific's 3 members left. Strangely, these aliens didn't break into the spaceship. They rode their spider machines away as if they didn't notice it. It's simple. The aliens in the movie communicate through telepathy, which is a double-edged sword. Their psyche strength is powerful compared to normal humans. However, they are also more fragile than humans against psyche force users who specialize in offensive and control psyche abilities. They are more easily controlled. I believe that man used an ability to blind the aliens from seeing the spaceship. It was a girl's voice inside the spaceship. Yinkong got up from the floor with a smile. She glanced around at the people still lying and her smile bloomed. Yet, her eyes remained cool as ice. She said. Nicely done, Honglu. How did you know they would only hypnotize us and not break our limbs? She casually smacked her hand at Honglu's forehead. Honglu sat up then pinched his hair. Not absolutely certain, about 70%. This is the alien mothership, so psyche force abilities might not work as intended. If they broke our limbs and the aliens broke free of their ability while we were in the spaceship, we would be done for. They on the other hand would not get a single point. They are losing over 10,000 points already at the negative score they have, which would without a doubt drive their points to the negatives and trigger the erase mechanism from God. They have the items to escape the movie alive, but it would be still a lot of points they would be losing out. They didn't break out limbs to prevent this from happening. Yinkong nodded. He slapped the others' foreheads one by one with a giggle and everyone sat up from the floor. Cheng Xiao asked. That doesn't sound right. Aren't we still dead if the aliens noticed the spaceship while we were hypnotized? Honglu said. That guy's a psyche force user and only that. If he hypnotized us, he can lift the ability. If he broke our limbs, he wouldn't be able to heal us when he's away. I believe there's a trigger set up by the entrance of the spaceship that once the aliens enter it, the hypnotized effect will be lifted. He wouldn't let us die to the aliens. At the same time, he would also know when we leave the spaceship. Yinkong had woken everyone while Honglu explained. He clapped his hands and said. I am going back to sleep then, Honglu. My time limit for a day is 5 minutes. Include that in your calculations when you make plans. I don't want to get killed because you overestimated me. She closed her eyes with a smile and dropped to the floor. Almost instantly, Yinkong jumped up again. However, there was no smile on her face anymore. She glanced around with her expressionless face and when she saw Cheng Xiao, she asked. Did you also feel that you couldn't hit the blonde man when you fought him? It's more like a distortion of our spatial senses. An attack that was supposed to hit ended up way off. Their personalities are so different. Cheng Xiao thought. He touched his broken leg and replied. Yeah, I had the same feeling. I was certain that I could hit him, but the outcome was I didn't even touch him. And I could dodge his attack, yet he still hit me. It's probably distortion on my spatial senses, from the man who had his eyes closed the whole time. Yin Kong and the rest of the team looked to Hong Lu. Hong Lu clapped his hands and said. Let's begin our plan. First of all, find a way to obtain the technologies from the aliens. Then hide as far away as you can like we planned. Keep yourselves alive until Xian uses the magic cannon. Let's go. He went ahead and walked out of the spaceship. At the time the second spaceship landed on the mothership, Zheng was charging through his way like a chariot since he was strong. The aliens wouldn't use powerful weapons inside the mothership and normal weapons weren't able to stop him. The realization boosted his confidence and he drove every area he passed by into chaos. The other group with Imhotep wasn't so lucky. The spider machines chased after them, so Imhotep jumped off the platform following Zheng. His sandstorm wasn't as fast as Zheng using Saru, so he wasn't able to get rid of the machines. The structure of the mothership also limited his ability to fight. Imhotep was most powerful on a desert after all, where he could make use of mummified corpses, sand, and wind. There was nothing of the like in the mothership. Furthermore, Zheng could charge his dragon's heart to defend the fires from the machines, but the other members couldn't. Their dragon's hearts would deplete in 3 to 5 shots. I don't have the evidence, but I feel like we got schemed by Xian again. Actually, it's Xian, Honglu and Zheng together this time. Damn it. I thought we are here to fight against the aliens for our lives. I've been thinking about her this whole time. I didn't know we are here to run. Hung shouted. Hung and Schwellen avoided the fires while being inside the sandstorm, but 20 minutes of floating in the sandstorm was turning their heads dizzy and nauseating. Imhotep also occasionally breathed audibly. Such a long time of flying in sandstorm form was also a challenge for him. I can't keep up much longer, Hung. I need at least 30 minutes of rest before I can transform into sand again. Imhotep's voice sounded next to Hung and Schwellen's ears. The sand was descending to the floor when the two were still shocked. Hung yelled. No. Don't get down. We will get killed here. The machines don't even need to fire and can us into the ground. Don't get down. Schwellen's face blanched as she stared at Hung absent-minded. The sandstorm slowly rose a dozen meters following Hung's shout, then started falling. Schwellen finally cried out, but Hung calmed down in contrast. The moment the sand touched the floor, he was gripping onto several enchanted arrows in his hand. Imhotep was carrying Hung and Schwellen toward the narrower passageways when they ran for their lives. However, the space inside the mothership was simply enormous, and almost every section of it was over 100 meters in height. The spider machines intercepted them whichever passageway they entered. 5 machines were already waiting on the floor when the sandstorm landed. They were one step behind in reaction. While their guns were lowering to find their targets, 3 arrows flew out from the sandstorm and collided one after the other. The final arrow hit the machine closest to the sandstorm at a speed invisible to the eyes. A barrier emerged before the machine. The explosive shot struck the barrier with an audible pop, then pierced its way through. The machine exploded in the next instant. The blast from the explosion blew a nearby machine away. The other machines opened fire at the 3 people. It was the moment Hung had been waiting for. He yelled. Protect her. Find a spot on the deck and corrode it. Be careful, we can't let her die. His eyes defocused. Hung held onto his bow and leaped to the side. Imhotep couldn't transform into a sandstorm anymore at this time, but he could still float and move swiftly. He turned into a gust of wind, wrapped around Schwellen and moved 10 meters away while Hung leaped off. The spot they were standing on became engulfed in fire. The heat wave from the fire chased after Hung. He didn't look behind. There was no way for him to actively dodge the energy beams. They didn't have the speed of light, but they were still faster than him. While he was in the air, he flipped over with his head facing down. He landed on his hands, then pushed himself up again. With the turn of his body, he fired 3 arrows at a spider machine. Bang. Another machine down. Hung cleared the machines in the area within a minute. On the other hand, his condition was clearly not well given the backlash from the second unlocked stage and expending over half the elven energy he had. This fight consumed over 3 times the normal amount of resources it would have taken in order to finish it quickly. If the same number of machines were to assault them again, he wouldn't be able to end the fight so quickly. During the fight, Imhotep summoned his magic with all his energy in an unsightly manner. Scarabs crawled out from his legs and chewed a hole in the metallic deck. The hole was a meter wide and enough to fit a person through. How's it? Hung breathed heavily. How deep is it? If it isn't deep enough, one energy beam would kill us inside. SHHH, Imhotep uttered in a low volume. They have chewed through a few dozen meters. It's hollow underneath the deck. Maybe there's another layer. Who knows? Give it another minute and they should chew through the deck. What? They're so fast? Hung asked in a surprise. Imhotep didn't mention the cost that came with the speed. Scarabs had to be replenished in the mummy, inside Hamunaptra. The scarabs were killing themselves to chew through such a big volume of metal, and Imhotep was frowning from his loss. Still, the scarabs were extremely efficient and chewed through the 100-meter thick deck within a minute. Hung and Imhotep looked at each other. Then Imhotep turned into a gust and brought the other 2 people down. While Imhotep, Hung, and Schwellen were running for their lives, Zheng was causing a storm inside the alien mothership. There were certainly violent gusts from the numerous explosions, though no rain. Zheng had no fear of the spider machines unlike the other group. The energy beams could at the most induce pain on his body. The recovery rate of his chi was equal to its consumption as long as he stayed on top of dodging the incoming fires. With technological weapons being ineffective against him, there was no way for the aliens to defeat him with close combat. Furthermore, psyche abilities had little influence on him since he had reached the 4th stage and broke free of his heart's devil. His enemies could only rely on force greater than what he possessed or corner him through the use of influence. Zheng had scouted this large area in the time. The mothership was similar to a hive, constructed by layers upon layers of passageways. In between the passageways were metallic layers approximately 100 meters in depth. The aliens had fully grasped anti-gravitational technology that enabled them to bypass the difficulty-caused height and build such a magnificent structure. There were vertical passageways that went through the mothership. Every 1,000 meters down was a platform like the ones Team China's spaceship landed on. A few of the rooms Zheng encountered had other uses that he couldn't figure out. Spider machines and spaceships were parked in most rooms, and then there were the red-colored plants. He didn't know what these plants were, but he could imagine, or at the least, he could see their uses. Human bodies hung and embedded on the plants. Not all of these bodies were corpses, most were, but some were still alive. All the bodies belonged to humans. The plants infected the bodies. Branches pierced through every part of the bodies, from the stomach to the brain. It seemed as though they had become part of the plants, or the plants were growing within them. Zheng had goosebumps the first time he entered a room like this. The moans, terrible groans uttered by the living sounded like voices echoed from the depth of hell. They could not move their bodies, so they stared at Zheng, as if they were begging him to free them from this hell. Zheng dragged several dozen spider machines into the rooms and detonated them. The plants continuously released carbon monoxide, which was neutralized by another gas it released, but the explosions broke the balance and the rooms exploded. I will kill all the aliens. Just think of it as doing something good for the humans of this world. There's no right or wrong in a war to fight for a species' living space. Although Zheng had mostly figured out Xian and Honglu's plan, he was still infuriated by the scenes he witnessed. It was sympathy toward the loss of his kind. Those killed and being killed were humans after all. When he saw those humans, he had the thought, if I am one of them. A vicious fire burned inside him and he wanted to blast the mothership with the magic cannon. It's too inconvenient without a psyche force user. There's no way to contact the other members, no way to see the area in whole, no way to know where the enemies are, no way to know where the targets are. A psyche force user is too valuable to a team, more so than the leader, the fighters, and the strategist combined. A good psyche force user should greatly increase a team's overall strength. Zheng muttered as he ran along the passageway. He had two goals: go through as many areas as he could to increase the chance of finding an energy reserve, which would allow him to blow up a large section at once, and to use himself to bait Team Pacific. If he guessed it right, Team Pacific should have arrived at the mothership at this time. I don't know how strong Team Pacific are, but I will eventually see it in a battle. I am more curious at the aliens. Is this all there is to them? What do they have to defeat us or even capture us alive? They wouldn't have let us inside the mothership if they aren't intending to capture us. Do they have a secret weapon? What is it? The three members of Team Pacific were peaceful compared to Zheng. All the machines that came within 100 meters of them stopped functioning and only woke up after they left 10,000 meters away. Several hundred machines gathered after them, but they neither attacked nor moved closer to Team Pacific. Interesting. Team China's leader is an anxious type fighter. He talks to himself while he walks. But he's right. A psyche force user is like a terminal that connects all the members of a team to a network. A team without a terminal will only end in death. Julian sneered, but only for a second, because he noticed Lionheart was staring at him. He held back his smile and rubbed the corner of his mouth. Lionheart moved his eyes away. Those eyes felt sharp, as though he was ready to kill someone. Julian and the other member couldn't help but took 2 steps to the side. Julian said with a smile. We are close to Team China's leader. Should we join the fight for this one? Lionheart combed his hair with a cold smile and turned his head around. Same rules. I will fight him alone. If I lose, we will go at him together. I suddenly find that I can't understand you. You have been hiding behind me since way back in time. Are you going to give me a dagger to the back? His eyes were cold as steel. Julian's smile and tone remained gentle as before. How could I? We are comrades. I am not going to act stupid when such a strong enemy is standing before us. Rest assured, leader. You should be confident with your own strength. You are the man who will surpass the leader of Team Devil. Lionheart took a deep breath. A deep red flame emerged on his body. Its color was so deep that it was close to black. A pure white light radiated from the Caucasian man at the same time and enclosed Julian inside. The dark red flame couldn't come near to the light. After a while, Lionheart retrieved the flame back into his body. This guy's sheath is definitely an S-rank item or higher. The only issue lies in its restriction, or I would have killed him and seized it. I should have killed Julian before the sheath appeared, or at least before he exchanged the Shaka enhancement. There's no guarantee that I can kill him at this point. Looks like I have to resort to that method. This idiot is showing off his self-created ability again. How can you be so proud of an ability created with my help? Julian opened his lips, but his expression suddenly changed. He said, hurry. Zheng Jia is running at another direction. His speed is getting faster. He might have discovered us. Lionheart was surprised for a moment, then he jumped. He seemed to have transformed into a dark red light and flashed straight ahead. Send his location into my mind. You can take your time. I am going to meet that arrogant leader. Lionheart left his message and disappeared from the other two people's sights in the next second. Zheng didn't discover Team Pacific approaching him. In fact, he wanted Team Pacific to find him. He was running because he found a translucent room with a window that allowed him to see through to the outside of the mothership. This window was facing the Earth. Zheng didn't pay much attention in the beginning. He schemed the room then left, but something didn't feel right after he left the room. The spaceship entered the mothership on the side the mothership was facing the Earth. Counting the mothership's rotation, it should take several more hours before the side he was on rotated to the opposite side. Yet, no one knew what time Xian was going to fire. Zheng felt unease. If his conjecture turned out true, Team China would see a glimpse of light in this situation, but all living beings in this world, from aliens to humans and animals, would not. If the magic cannon were to fire facing the Earth, no one would know how many humans would die. It's a stupid principle to adhere to, but I don't wish to bring this disaster to the humans on the Earth if circumstances allow. Let's just treat this as a good deed. Zheng followed the passageways leading into the center of the mothership at once. He didn't know where Xian was, but Xian wouldn't be that far away even if he was fast. Xian hid himself through an unknown method, and he seemed to know the location of everyone else. Doraemon probably produced something when he was alone. Zheng wanted to enter the center of the mothership and deviate the projectile of the magic cannon from the Earth when it fired. However, Zheng didn't know how to lead the rest of his team. If the magic cannon did not cover the whole team, the chance of success would be lowered because no one knew who the guide selected as the leader. If the candidate was outside the fire of the magic cannon, those who died would die for nothing. I hope Xian and Honglu plan includes gathering everyone together for the fire. Anyway, Team China's fate is on the hands of you two awful dudes. Putting the fate of everyone to Xian and me. Sorry, but I don't have a way to gather everyone. Honglu said in a matter-of-fact tone. The group walked out from the spaceship. Julian had cleared surrounding area before Team Pacific left. The aliens weren't killed, but his powerful psyche force left the machine still unconscious. Team China was rather relaxed for the while. Cheng Xiao asked the question his had, how to find Zheng and put a perfect ending to this movie. Honglu, to everyone's surprise, responded with he had no solution. Everyone was shocked. Honglu had told them of the whole scheme already, but if the team could not gather at the last step, how were they going to know who the guide had chosen? What if the chosen one wasn't inside the blast radius? There's no need to worry too much. Honglu twirled his hair and chuckled. He held a piece of silver plate and communicated his thoughts directly to the others' minds. I have considered this possibility, and I believe Xian also considered it during the formulation of the plan. One thing we are certain is Team Pacific wouldn't let us die too easily. And? Not like they are going to let Zheng come find us. Ang Sunamun said with a hint of panic. Honglu looked at the woman with a seemingly smile. He shook his head and continued talking through the mind. They don't plan to have Zheng look for us. They want us to look for Zheng. Team Pacific's plan is to kill Zheng before they kill us, to avoid him become cautious at the announcement of our deaths. Yet, they can't have us actually meet up with Zheng either. A Team China assembled together is much stronger. At the same time, they don't want the aliens to kill us. My speculation is their Psyche Force user will likely to inform us of Zheng's location when we are in danger, which happened to be the place where they would be fighting Zheng. Once they kill Zheng, we would arrive to get killed. There was a moment of silence from the rest of the group. Ang Sunamun asked. How would they know when we are in danger? What dangers exist in the mothership? The spider machines. The spider machines do pose danger, but they don't come quick enough. Furthermore, we get surrounded by a large number of machines, their Psyche Force user won't actually be able to guide us out of the danger. They need something different. What is your guess on why the aliens allowed us into the mothership? Honglu giggled, and without waiting for an answer, he continued. I have been contemplating, how strong are the aliens? The aliens in this world are stronger than how they are depicted in the movie. Judging by the situation we are in and the influence Team Pacific possesses, this movie doesn't justify the near 20 people difficulty. In other words, the aliens have a secret that isn't shown in the movie. I think it has to do with the red plants that appeared on the Earth. Those plants consume human bodies, speak of which. Honglu fell into his thoughts as he began to unravel some key points of the movie. He said through his mind. So that's why. The pieces fall into place if my conjectures have been correct. The aliens must have obtained the movie plot from Team Pacific and the existence of God's realm and the teams. We don't know how much they know at this point, but that's why they allowed us into the mothership. They want to obtain our genes. The red plants are capable of absorbing and modifying an organism's genes. Each planet has an environment that only organisms native to the planet can adapt to. The microorganisms vary from planet to planet. Aliens would most likely die in 10 or 20 days if they are suddenly exposed inside the Earth. They have to adapt to the environment in order to survive, and the best way to accomplish this task is to extract the genes from native organisms, which is a function of the plants. Furthermore, the plants might also be biological weapons. A species that can absorb and fuse genes from other species might be able to evolve into a new species adept at combat. In this case, the aliens let us into the mothership to absorb our genes and evolve organisms that can unlock the first, second, third, and even the fourth stage. I think the danger I was talking about should be coming soon. Zheng, Team Pacific, and the group led by Hong Lu were advancing with a destination in mind. On the other hand, Hung, Imhotep, and Schwellen were running around like a headless chicken. Not that they couldn't think of a goal, but the number of spider machines were too many to count, which left them with no time to think. The biggest goal that occupied their minds was to escape, and everything else could be pushed to the side. Damn it! Why are there so many spider machines? Are we the only ones targeted by the aliens? Hung had goosebumps on his head as he stared at the swarm of spiders below. This group no longer had the luxury to fly inside a whirlwind. They tried to get as much rest as possible. Only when they were surrounded by machines did Imhotep transformed into wind and carried the other two away. With Imhotep's help, the group managed to stay alive, and the evasion allowed him to recover his strength. Less and less spider machines appeared on their ways as they ran. They thought it was chance to stop for a break, but suddenly, they ran into an area where a swarm of machines were assembled. More and more continued to come out from a certain room. The sight piqued the group's interest, thinking this area was the aliens' arsenal. Imhotep had recovered to full energy at this point, and he wasn't one to lack bravery. He swept into the room like the wind and witnessed a scene painted in red. Red plants covered the floor. Inside the plants were countless human bodies. It felt as though he walked into hell. Did the aliens bring their plants over because they can't breathe the air on the earth? Hung was confused and his face was pale. The sight under his feet was terrifying. He never imagined the aliens were conducting human experiments. Imhotep planned to bring the other two people away. However, more terrifying events had only started to unfold. The machines all halted. A door opened on top of the machines and the aliens walked out. They walked into the red plants in rows. The still plants suddenly enclosed the dozens of aliens inside. A moment later, the plants quickly withered into ashes, revealing the aliens that were consumed. Those who watched Independence Day should know the actual aliens were small in size and normally stayed inside biosuits for their activities. The biosuits melted and began to wriggle as though they were granted life. They began to take on another form. The three people watching the scene were shocked. When the biosuit stabilized into form, Hung couldn't help but cried. The heck? Technoman. Imhotep and Schwellen both asked. Technoman. What's that? An ancient anime I used to watch. Hung muttered as he stared at the aliens below. The anime also tells the war between aliens and humans. The aliens in it does not have the technological advantage as the aliens in Independence Day. However, they can transform into plants, which allows them to consume humans. After a period of time, the consumed human will turn into a humanoid weapon that no longer possess consciousness and controlled by the alien inside. The anime seems similar to the aliens here. They both form their organic suit with plants and human genes. I wonder if the aliens here are more powerful. The organic suits had taken form by this time. Their appearance deviated from the looks of aliens and moved toward humanoid form with human features on the heads. Though the outer layer was still hard and further darkened. They seemed like robots. They really take the form of Technoman. Wonder how is their strength? Hung muttered. While Hung spoke, a crimson flame rose from the aliens. They did not express any pain from the flame. It seemed awfully similar to the way when Zhen used his vampire ability. A dozen or so aliens leaped at the sand floating in the air, the highest one reached 10 meters. Imhotep did not fear the incoming attacks while he was in his sand form. He let the aliens close in on him, but he groaned. What is this? The sandstorm swept toward the exit and the aliens followed closely behind. Several of the aliens' hands radiated with a silver light. They stretched the light into arrows and fired them at the sand. The arrows had terrible accuracy, but one of them hit. Imhotep groaned again before he finally made it out of the room. Even the slowest person would recognize Imhotep was injured by the attacks. It was surprising, as energy attacks by themselves were supposedly ineffective against Imhotep, who had a different life form. Not even nuclear bombs would be able to kill him. Magical attacks were the only ones able to damage him. Hung thought more than this. The attacks from the aliens seemed familiar to him. The flame didn't have to be mentioned. The arrow seemed like a copy of when he used the silver bow. Were the aliens simulating the attacks of the players? The sandstorm sped up after it left the room and flew over 1,000 meters away in an instant. It dropped to the floor, then Imhotep turned back to human form. He was kneeling on the ground, breathing heavily. There was a hole on his back that nearly pierced his body and it was smoking. On his shoulder was a patch of burnt skin. A few seconds later, his wounds began to recover. A dozen aliens also rushed out from the room. The swarm of spider machines that were stopped outside the room also rushed toward the group. The Technoman transformed aliens were extremely fast and could leap over 10 meters with a step. It seemed like they were using the movement technique. Hung looked at Imhotep, then at the incoming aliens. His mind was calm. He readied his bow into position. His other hand held an energy stone, then touched the string. At the next second, a volley of energy arrows fired. The energy arrows are too weak to penetrate the aliens' barriers. I can only delay them as much as possible. It's unbelievable that the aliens can transform into Technoman. I saw a lot of those plants on the earth. Are humans going to be exterminated? Hung placed no expectation on the energy arrows. To his surprise, the aliens leading the swarm were shredded into pieces like paper despite their speed. Hung was shocked, and so were the aliens that just came out from the room. The aliens and machines stopped in place. They suddenly obtained the abilities and enhancements from the players, but they either don't have the power to support them, don't know how to utilize them, or overestimated themselves. So, they took the energy arrows with their bodies. Now, what should I do next? Once they fully grasp their powers, and become able to damage Imhotep, we would be done. Yet, no matter how much Han contemplated, the future did not look bright to him from just running around without a clear destination, which made him worried. With Imhotep injured, their chance of surviving dropped by a great margin. Suddenly, an image appeared in his mind. It showed the location of Zheng and the directions that would lead them to Zheng. In the images, Zheng was fighting with a crimson figure. I am a genius. Strategies and schemes aren't my trades, but I am a genius when it comes to combat. This was the first line Lionheart spoke after he dashed in front of Zheng. He flew across the distance in the shape of a deep red shadow, which actually seemed impressive. However, the one standing before him was Zheng. After witnessing countless battles and the best of the realm, and after reaching mid-4th stage, a single ability could not waver his mind. If he wasn't being cautious, he would have given Lionheart a punch to the face when he spoke. Zheng didn't say anything in response. He turned around and dashed right by Lionheart in a gust of wind. There was still a way before he arrived at the desired location for the fight. Once he got there, he would be cleared of all fears. Team Pacific only sent one person here, so their Psyche Force user was somewhere else. If he unleashed his power and killed the team's leader too fast, it would become difficult to find the Psyche Force user, since Team China had no Psyche Force user of their own. Lionheart was one of a kind. He wouldn't think so far ahead. When he saw Zheng dashed past him without respect, his eyes burned with fire. The anger that was ignited by Julian rushed out and he shouted. A wave of deep red flame burst out from his body. The metallic deck under his feet melted into liquid instantly. The Hu area felt like it had turned into a furnace. Zheng planned to quickly get past Lionheart with Saru. However, he was surrounded by intense heat after moving less than 100 meters away. His heart skipped a beat, then he leaped. He continued climbing in the air with Jeppo. A moment later, he landed several hundred meters away. The area he was standing on had been melted into a crater. The deep red flame on Lionheart's body was burning more intensely than before. Oh. Your strength is actually worthwhile. Zheng became a little more serious after witnessing Lionheart's ability. He had seen a similar ability from his clone. It was a black flame that possessed unparalleled destructiveness. That ability was also self-created and was on the same level as explosion and destruction. Though when it came to the actual fight, the user was the deciding factor, and he had no doubt he would win. Comparing an individual's overall strength, he would be within top 3 of the realm. Lionheart laughed out loud and said, I told you I am a genius in battle. This self-created ability is nothing like those you can exchange. This is a power that comes within the self, more suited to the user than A and even A abilities. My high-level vampire bloodline is a perfect match for the ability in addition. Once I kill you and absorb your power, my flame will ascend to a black flame. Haha. At that time, you clone will no longer be a match for me. So this dude was not all talk. He wouldn't be selected into Team Devil if he had nothing to back himself up. His potential must be huge. He had a perspective of his own with regard to battles by abandoning all other abilities and enhancements and focusing on vampire bloodline and a select few practical abilities. The points and rewards he obtained from enslaving the team were poured into the vampire bloodline, rendering the bloodline and its related abilities immensely powerful. His strength was above players who wanted to enhance everything but couldn't translate to actual combat strength. Zheng sighed. He unlocked the first stage, but that was only it. He hadn't decided to kill Team Pacific's leader at this time. He was cautious at interfering with Xian and Honglu's plan. He had an idea of the plan but not the details, so he didn't know if they calculated the situation he was in. Yet, it appeared difficult to leave if he avoided fighting Team Pacific. Lionheart's speed in the shadow form was much slower than Saru, but he could maintain that ability longer than Zheng could use Saru. Zheng didn't want to become too distressed by getting chased. Whatever, I will fight if I must. This guy enslaves newbies, so there is definitely enmity between us in Team Devil. I might as well tear him apart. Killing intent surged within Zheng as he contemplated. He entered the second unlock stage. At the same time, Lionheart halted his arrogant smile and gave a shout. His clothes began to rip open. A pair of black bat wings spread out from his back. They were like the wings of a devil, and were similar to the ones clone Zheng had. Do you remember what I told you? Zheng sneered as he saw Lionheart becoming serious. I didn't bother to look for you, but you came to me. Did you think Team China is made of paper? Come to me with a full team if you want to fight. Who do you think I am? Zheng activated destruction. The next instant he was standing before Lionheart, who didn't even react. Zheng kicked him on the neck. The enormous force smacked Lionheart and his flame through the metallic walls. Lionheart was actually not bad. He quickly transformed into deep red blood after he crashed through the first wall. However, the transformation couldn't deflect the force and he continued to crash through several walls before he stopped. The blood turned back to human form afterward and he coughed a mouthful of blood. His neck was totally twisted. Not even a tank could withstand a punch in destruction from Zheng. This was a force powerful enough to damage the prototype god. It was an accomplishment that Lionheart's body didn't fall apart. Zheng was surprised by his own strength too. His enemies had always been either too weak or too powerful that he didn't have a clear understanding of his strength. Enemies like the aliens were so weak he didn't even need to use the power of explosion on them. Beings like the prototype god were too strong where destruction became majorly ineffective. When he finally got the chance to fight someone on a similar level, or just right below him, he realized he had become a monster. Lionheart grabbed his head and twisted it back into place like a monster. He crushed the bones on his neck, then a layer of red light glowed. By the time Zheng walked into the passageway Lionheart was in, the neck had recovered. Impressive strength. Really impressive strength. You are stronger than how Team Celestial portrayed you. Haha. Such amazing strength. If I can absorb this strength, I will become invincible. I can easily return to the real world. The whole world will be. Lionheart seemed to have fallen into insanity. The blood and dirt on his face nullified his handsome appearance. The way he was looking at Zheng was like a maniac. So, you didn't die. Vampires in the legends have tough life forces. Zheng sneered and rubbed his fists. He was about to beat Lionheart into the ground. Lionheart calmed himself a bit and laughed. Enough with your vampires. We are the kindred. You also enhanced the vampire bloodline, even though yours is a low level. Speak of which, I should consider you a genius like me for being able to utilize such powerful with your low-level bloodline. Haha. Retard. Zheng shook his head. He dashed toward Lionheart with Saru. His right first smashed forward with the force of instant destruction. However, a layer of deep red flame was waiting on its path. The flame exploded in a puff but blocked the force. Lionheart snapped his fingers and flame resurfaced on his body again. Furthermore, a firewall rose between him and Zheng. I told you I am a genius when it comes to combat. Let us start round 2. Zheng initially planned to quickly finish off Lionheart through instant destruction. He didn't expect Lionheart to take his first attack head on. The flame barrier that blocked the second attack struck his interest. Not a bad skill. Zheng followed up with 3 more punches, each one carried monumental force. However, the thin layer of flame blocked his attacks despite him shattering the flame every time. Lionheart massaged his neck and sneered. I heard that your clone, the strongest man in the realm, also uses this ability. Only that he's stronger than me and his flame has evolved to a pure black color. Once I absorb your power, he will be my next target. Haha. Zheng showed no response. This scene was on the level of a school-age kid robbing a martial artist, absurd and comedic. Lionheart didn't know Zheng's true power was way beyond him. Zheng couldn't even feel worried. This ability is practical in both offense and defense. Its effectiveness increases with the user's strength. My clone has the flame in pure black color. Maybe I can improve my combat power if I learn this ability. I will keep this fight going for a while and see if I can learn it while the rest of Team Pacific arrive. Zheng breathed out. He didn't bother taking out Tiger Soul and waved his hand. Come. Let me see how much of a genius you are. Don't disappoint me, or you would be dead. Lionheart's face turned blue. Are you mocking me? Go to hell. The flame in front of him exploded before he finished talking. Zheng flashed next to him. Spend your time to think how you can survive instead of insulting. Keep in mind you are fighting someone way beyond your level. Or do you think that I won't kill you? Zheng laughed coldly. He spinned his hands in front of his chest as if there was an invisible ball. Under the appearance of the seemingly slow motion was speed approaching the speed under Saru. When Zheng made the breakthrough into mid-4th stage after resurrection, he pondered the issue regarding his lack of variation in offense. Explosion and destruction were extremely powerful, Tiger Soul could cut through everything, but his attacks lacked variation. Overwhelming power could trump any technique, but what if the other party possessed similar power? He would no longer have an advantage in the battle. Wielding Tiger Soul with magic, the new technique he theorized, and the one he just used were experimentations. An enemy that could take his attacks was the best practice target. Lionheart wouldn't stand there and wait for Zheng's attack to come. He was confident but he could gauge the opponent's strength after the exchanges. His wings flapped and brought him up into the air. The flame enveloping him struck toward Zheng. Zheng's hand slowed down and different colors emerged in the center of his palms. On the left was a dim black light and on the right a soft white light. The two lights gradually moved to the center, but they did not fuse together. It felt like the lights were separated by a thin line. The line suddenly radiated with blinding brilliance as if Zheng's sun was emerging from Zheng's palm. Zheng's expression grew increasingly serious and drops of sweat rolled down his cheek. As the flame reached 1 meter before him, he pushed the black and white light out and cried. Damn it! I can't control it anymore. Go. On the other side, Lionheart was flying toward Zheng in the form of a crimson light. After he moved for only half a meter, a light as bright as the sun radiated from Zheng's hands. Lionheart didn't get to see what exactly happened. The flame that he threw out disintegrated. An intertwining black and white light shot past him from underneath. The black and white fused into gray at the next instant, then the gray transformed into a rainbow of colors and finally it became so bright that his eyes could no longer look at them. The beam shot so far away that he couldn't follow. A deafening explosion followed as if a bomb exploded right beside his ears. The shock knocked Lionheart back into human form. Lionheart stared at the resulting hole with his jaws dropped. Zheng on the other side showed the same expression. Neither of them uttered a word for a while. A swarm of spider machines eventually came out from a passageway. Lionheart swallowed and said, This is a draw then. It's still early in the movie. We will have a chance to determine who's stronger. I'll take my leave for now. He turned into a crimson light and flew off at a speed faster than he came. Zheng was surprised. When he realized what happened, the blond man had already gone far. He didn't have the energy to be concerned about Lionheart. He had lost sensations on his arms like they didn't belong to him. Qi circulated through his arms and slowly brought his sensations back. However, the pain was beyond any adjective in existence. That power is terrifying, being generated from the fusion of refined Qi and magic, the same method used by the magic cannon. If I were even half a second too late, my arms would have been destroyed. Perhaps I need to be in dragon form to use this technique. There's still room for improvement. Shooting it in a beam doesn't feel as powerful as condensing the energy and use it in close combat. I will ask Doraemon after the movie. Zheng looked at the direction that Lionheart had gone. He learned more about this man after the fight. Lionheart was not weak and he was not someone who completely relied on enslaving team members. He had his own fighting style. His stats and abilities mainly came from enhancements, but he was also able to create his own ability and convert the enhancements into his own. He had great potential and it wasn't luck that God selected him into Team Devil. Whatever. Let him go find the rest of Team Pacific, then I can kill them all at once. Saves the hassle from looking for them one by one. As for the aliens, why are they coming out from the machines? Zheng was about to continue down the path to his destination. He noticed the spider machines all stopped and the aliens walked out. The aliens were more slender than he expected, with a resemblance to human figure. Why are they holding a bow made of silver light? Zheng muttered. The scene that followed totally shocked him. 20 of the aliens drew their silver bows. Suddenly, hundreds of light arrows were fired from the bows. In the time that his mind blanked out, it was too late to dodge. Several arrows hit his arms and legs. The pain that he expected didn't come. The arrows only managed to pierce his skin when he had the protection from Qi, so they were rather weak. The strangest thing was the aliens charged at Zheng after only one round of arrows. Zheng picked up Tiger's soul. At the same time, he was worried the aliens had special attacks up their sleeves. He carefully slashed his sword. The light blade shredded the aliens into pieces. They were completely defenseless and all died in one hit. Zheng was shocked again. It's too strange. Did something hit their head so that they are looking to kill themselves? The attacks that looked powerful were weak. They had no defense to support their close combat. It doesn't make sense. The spider machines further away were backing off while Zheng contemplated. He didn't bother chasing after them and continued toward his destination. He was still trying to come up with a way to contact the other members so everyone would meet up at his destination, not knowing the other two groups of Team China were already going there under the guidance of Team Pacific Psyche Force user. So that's it? I get the danger that this movie possesses. The movie does not specifically counter any sort of team. The stronger a team is, the more dangerous this movie becomes. Honglu explained to the others with a chuckle. This group also encountered the weird aliens with weak attacks and defenses. The aliens appeared as if they were looking to suicide, which confused everyone. Honglu laughed then explained. The aliens are still experimenting. They haven't been able to utilize the genes of the players yet. Though I wonder when did they steal our genes. However, it verifies my conjecture that the aliens let us into the mothership in order to steal our genes. Seeing that the group still didn't get it, Honglu continued. You should understand if you think over it carefully. I have seen a sci-fi movie that also depicted a plot of alien invasion on the Earth. At the end of the movie, the microorganisms on the Earth wiped out the aliens. That is similar to how the Europeans carried their bacteria and virus to the Americas. When the difference in environments is on the scale of planets, the aliens have to have their way of overcoming this obstacle in order to survive the different planets they traveled through. The red plants and feeding the plants with human flesh are this method. Honglu paused for a second and pinched the hair in front of his forehead. If this method absorbs genes to enhance themselves, we players are the most attractive targets for them. They can reach the next stage of evolution once they absorbed all of our genes. This is where the difficulty of this movie comes from. Anything else that happened up to this point wouldn't be able to explain the difficulty. I suspect the aliens would only grow stronger with time, at an increasingly fast pace, until they reach the same power as the players. Before that time comes, our fate depends on whether Xian can achieve his plan. This boy is impressive. Far away from this group, Julian frowned. He had made up his mind to bring this boy into his team. It would take up a spot but completely worth it. The retarded leader could just die in this movie. The spot itself was more valuable than Lionheart. Lionheart was also no match to Zheng. He managed to escape, but without his help, there was no way for Lionheart to even injure Zheng. The second decision Julian made was to abandon his leader. He's looking for me. It still takes some effort to kill him. It's unfavorable to me if Team China are to actually meet up. I also can't avoid Lionheart. If he can't find me, he will become suspicious. Given how he already has an intent to kill me, it will lead him to break off from the team and give away the chance to wiping Team China. Let's give him a treat and kill those 3 members from Team China. He shouldn't be strong enough to beat me even after he absorbs their powers. Julian made up his mind and responded to Lionheart, who had been calling him. I can't go with you to fight Zheng Jia. His strength is too great. Furthermore, it's useless as you don't have the strength to injure him. Why don't you kill those few stronger members from Team China and absorb their genes first? We underestimated the team that won against Team Celestial. Among that group of 3, only the girl is a normal person. The other 2 are strong, a ranged fighter that can pierce alien barriers and one with an undying body able to transform into sand. Their abilities are perfect for you. How about we head out to fight Zhengzha after you absorb their abilities? Lionheart looked through the psyche scan sent by Julian. Hung was firing with a bow and Imhotep was dodging in sand form. Both abilities were impressive. He pondered for a moment then said. Okay. Send their location to me. Hide yourself. Once I absorb their abilities, come to me and we will go fight Zhengzha. I underestimated him. The original of the strongest man in the realm couldn't be underestimated. I will kill him and absorb his power. And then I will become the strongest man. Haha. He turned into a crimson light and flew toward Hung, Imhotep, and Schwellen. Julian sneered. He walked in the direction of Zheng and contemplated. Have to take care of this issue in the movie. If he grows too strong, his power would overpower any of my abilities. I've abandoned some of my interest to calm him down, but I can't let things go too smoothly for him. Delay him until I finish off Zhengzha. Let's do this. Hunglu's group also received location guidance from Julian and looked for Zheng on the way. Suddenly, the map being sent to their mind suddenly expanded. It also showed the location of Hung, Imhotep, and Swillen on the map and Lionheart who was speeding toward the group. It would take him only a few minutes to reach Team China's other group. What was Team Pacific's Psyche Force user trying to do? Why did he show the location of their leader? And why did it also show the other group's location on the map? Was this a trap? Possible, but the chance is slim. The most reasonable explanation is wants to use Hung's safety to delay us from meeting up with Zheng too soon. However, it's like holding a candle to the sun. Unless, there's an internal conflict within Team Pacific. The Psyche Force user wanted to interfere their leader and not us. While we delay their leader, he can finish off Zheng then arrive at the aftermath of our fight with their leader. Honglu gripped the silver plate. He sent the message to the group. Despite figuring out the cause for action taken by Team Pacific's Psyche Force user, he frowned. There's no good solution. It's a scheme under the sun. Everything is exposed to us but we can't do anything about it. We don't know how powerful their leader is and if the other group can handle him. It's a tricky situation. Honglu pinched the hair in front of his forehead. There was not much he could do at this point when the scheme had been set up and he had become a chess piece inside. Wit no longer had much of an effect in the grand scheme of things. They could only walk along the path already set up for them. The strength of the two parties would determine the winner. Only the strong could break himself free from the scheme. Aang Sunamun said in a panicking voice. That man's flame looks similar to Zheng's flame. Would he be able to injure Imhotep? After Imhotep joined the team, he practiced with all the members. His body was undying but magical items and abilities could damage him. The flame that Zheng possessed was a counter to Imhotep due to its soul-burning property. An undying body was of no use when its soul was gone. Yes. This is the same flame that Zheng has, looks more powerful than the original. There's no choice. Go help them, Yin Kong. You should be able to defeat Team Pacific's leader. Honglu frowned as he contemplated before saying to Yin Kong. Yin Kong shook his head. No. That man's strength isn't too impressive. Hung and Wang Xia will be able to take on him. You can add in 0 at the most. I need to fight the Psyche Force user. Everyone was shocked as they all stared at Yin Kong. She blushed, giving her a lovely charm despite her metrosexual appearance. She was attractive. Yin Kong lowered her head a little and said. The Psyche Force user's ability can cause the target to see illusions or misconceptions. The other me seemed to be familiar with this ability. So She suddenly giggled, taking away her cute and shy expression. Right. I want to fight that person. There are some Psyche Force related questions I want to ask him. Hee. I hope that doesn't disrupt your plan, Honglu. She lowered her head next to Honglu's face. Honglu backed away with a blushed face. His heart beat rapidly at the sweet scent of a girl. He was only just over 10 after all. He frowned and said. We have to defeat their leader in order to save the other group. There's no way to escape from him given his speed. Okay. Wang Xia and Cheng Xiao go help them. Cheng Xiao cried. What are you kidding me? My legs are broken. I am not the monster Zheng is. He can probably live with his head cut off. Honglu looked at Yin Kong and said. It's your suggestion so we will leave his wound to you. Also show us the marvel of mid-4th stage. Zheng only reached the mid-4th stage a while ago so he was less aware of the capacities the stage brought forth. Yin Kong on the other hand had reached early 4th stage many years ago and was near mid-4th stage. She walked over to Cheng Xiao and looked at him with a sweet face. Cheng Xiao's face became boiling red. What? Baby face big breasts. Yin Kong grabbed his legs and clenched them. The bones were mushed together by force. The intense pain knocked Cheng Xiao out and he foamed at the mouth. Yin Kong's smile grew increasingly bright and her eyes were becoming cold. She cut open Cheng Xiao's leg with her finger and also cut open her palm. She placed her hand on the broken bones. A few seconds later, Cheng Xiao cried himself away. His hands reached for the broken leg immediately. Hot. My legs are burning. He tried to pat his legs. Yin Kong pushed Cheng Xiao's hands away and said. The 4th stage does have some interest abilities, like controlling the genes to increase recovery rate 1,000 folds. However, it squeezes the person's life and can only be used once or twice. Don't blame me if your legs grow back abnormally. Cheng Xiao stopped trying to hit his legs. They were almost painted red. Sweat was raining down his head from the pain. He immediately took out a box of needles and stuck them on his legs, bringing relief onto his face. 10 more seconds later, the redness subsided. Cheng Xiao removed the needles. His legs were finally reconnected. He wiped the sweat off his head and was met with the cute smile of Yinkong. Before he had a chance to take any verbal advantage of her, Yinkong's expression dropped to 0 degrees as she returned to her other persona. She smacked Cheng Xiao's face with her leg and sent him flying several meters. Cheng Xiao flipped up with a laughter and wiped the blood bleeding from his nose. Good. Let me see that man's strength again. He broke my legs last time. It's time for me to break his legs.